Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you a build guide for the Rogue in Solasta 2's early access. This is going to be for both the new Scavenger subclass and the returning but improved Shadowcaster subclass, which lets you do sneak attacks with spells. Previously this was available at level 13 in Solasta 1, it's brought down to level 3 here, and it is awesome. Now, starting off from the basics here, the Rogue is a striker, and it's honestly very powerful. Now, this only goes up through levels 1 through 4 at the current moment. The Rogue is really good because they get their sneak attacks. Now, they get a D8 hit die. This is going to increase your hit points by 8 every single time you level up, plus Constitution modifier. You get saving throws and dexterity and intelligence, meaning we're good at protecting ourselves from spells. You get a ton of different skill choices, expertise, which is a great thing to get, as well as thieves tools. The Rogue's kind of one of the better out of combat characters at the current moment, and alongside the Wizard. With this, you also get light armor proficiency, martial weapons if they're finesse or light, and simple weapon training as well. But sneak attacks obviously being a big deal. For this to trigger, you have to have a finesse weapon or a ranged weapon and have advantage on the target, or if there's a friendly creature that is right next to them, giving you that kind of advantage. Another cool thing is you come learning the Thieves' Cant here, which is going to have some gameplay related abilities to it, and you also get short swords or daggers. Next up is our Ancestry selection. Now, the human is really good in this game because they get versatile, meaning they can choose any of these feats here. So you can get Savage Attacker if you wanted to. That's from our background right now currently, but this also lets us take Skilled if we want to become more of like a skilled monkey and be able to do everything outside of combat. I'm also a really big fan of Robust, which gives you an additional hit point, and you roll 2 die when you use your hit point die to recover hit points. And if you come down, you can stabilize yourself. Quick is also a nice one, giving you increased movement speed by 5 meters, and opportunity attacks will have disadvantage against us. And there's even like the Magic Initiate if you want to get some spell casting a little bit earlier on. Halflings also make for great thieves because they also get the Halfling's Luck. Whenever you roll a 1 on a d20, you can re-roll your die. You also get the Halfling's Nimbleness, which lets you move through targets that are a size larger than you. You also get the Halfling Brave, giving advantage on saving throws against being frightened, and naturally stealthy, which lets you take the hide action even when you're obscured only by a creature that is at least half a size larger than you, or 1 size larger than you. So honestly, Halflings do make for good rogues naturally. The elves actually have a good advantage here too. Now they get to choose an elven lineage, and the high elf here lets you learn cantrips, so it's good if you want to use a Shadowcaster. But Sylvan elves get an increased 5 meters or 5 feet movement speed, and they also get the venomous spike cantrip here. Dwarves are good too. They get dark vision, dwarven resilience, dwarven toughness, give increased hit points, and stone cutting, letting them see any targets that are within stone. My recommendation: humans just end up being really good in this game due to the human versatile being so good. And when we're going with this, Savage Attacker is a solid option here, which will re-roll your weapon attacks if you hit a target, and it uses the better result, but you can only do this 1 time per turn. This is a bit of a change. Now, this only goes up to level 4, so this isn't a worry, and the Rogue doesn't get extra attacks, so it's a solid choice, honestly, for the human feat. I do want to again mention the Robust and Quick are 2 other good options, but I think Savage Attacker just ends up winning. You can also get this from our background, but I personally like the Spy because this gives us both dexterity and intelligence, and we want to have a good intelligence on this for spellcasting purposes if you wanted to go that route, which I do think is worth it here. It's a very fun playstyle. And the Origin feat Vigilant here gives you proficiency and perception, which you roll for often in this game, and being surprised does not give you disadvantage in your initiative roll. And you do get surprised off in this game too, so this ends up being pretty solid. Alternatively, you could go with the Wanderer for the dexterity and constitution. This gives you Savage Attacker built in if you went with a different race, but I like getting Vigilant here from the Spy, and then from our human ancestry having the Savage Attacker just to maximize damage, as well as just getting into combat and making sure we're having a good time. And for our ability scores, I like to roll a 16 dexterity, 14 constitution, and 16 intelligence here. This is going to give you a good stat spread between your spellcasting, our melee attacking, and our survivability. It's a tough one to mix the points here just because we have 3 attributes that we need to have high. You could take points from intelligence and put them in constitution and have 16 constitution if you want to use the other subclass, the scavenger. And if you really want to min-max, you take 2 points out of that and bring your intelligence up to 17 because there are half feats in this game, so that can work very well too. Now, skill proficiencies as our strong suit. So we got perception and persuasion and deception there from our background in the rogue class. But one thing is we have all these dex checks that no one else is going to be fantastic at. So I would recommend grabbing these here and getting the expertise in them as well. So stealth and sleight of hand are very important. Investigation is another good one to have there since we have high intelligence. And for our final one, we can throw in acrobatics, which lets us stay on our feet when we're in a combat encounter, which is really nice. Then we can take our expertise in, I like to have it in sleight of hand. You can be the person that picks all the locks and disarms all the traps. You're just going to be the one that does that. And we also can use stealth here for giving ourselves increased stealth to be not detected. You can actually start encounters with this quite frequently in this game, so stealth is really nice and you can lead the party. You could also throw in acrobatics, persuasion if you wanted that, but I do think stealth and sleight of hand is our best role. Now we get to learn a language proficiency here, so we have thieves cant as well. Spread these out between your team. If you have certain characters taking certain ones, you're going to take the opposites of what they take. Now, for our weapon masteries, daggers are kind of interesting here because they get the nick ability here. So when you perform the extra attack granted by your light weapon, you can do it as part of the action instead of as a bonus action. So basically what this is saying is that if you have like 2 weapons in your hands, normally you do an attack, bonus action, you can actually just go whoop whoop on the single action without eating up your bonus action, which is great because the thief sometimes wants to, you know, at level 2, use their cunning actions and get some dashing in or disengaging, you know. So the dagger proficiency can be quite nice. We do want to have a bow proficiency of some sort. Vex is nice because this will set up an advantage on an attack roll against a creature. This is nice too because that will help us out with our sneak attacks. Darts too, pretty solid option, but we're going to go with short bow and the dagger proficiencies. And from our human ancestry, we get to take another skill. Woo! So history or arcana are great because we have intelligence. Also, nature can work. I would recommend grabbing one of these that your team isn't already having. Intelligence is going to be a tough one because it's typically just this class and the wizard that are going to be having that in the early access. And from my experience, there's a lot of arcana checks as well as religion checks from what I've seen, but this will obviously depend as we get further along in the game. And we also got 2 more proficiencies here. So we got the Draconic from the Rogue class. Again, just take whatever your rest of your team don't have. And here's an overview of what we just went over. Now level 2 is great because that's when we get our rogue feature Cunning action, which lets you use a bonus action to dash, disengage, or hide. This is great because dashing is going to be something you want to do often in this game, just due to the fact that we aren't able to get into combat encounters that easily often. So this is great because this lets you move into engage a target, and then we don't have to spend our bonus action if you have the nick attack on your weapon mastery for the dagger. Which then takes us to level 3. Now, I will talk about the scavenger here because you can use either subclass that appeals to you. I perfectly prefer the Shadowcaster here, but this one comes with serrated edge. This is actually very good. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you deal an additional 1d6 of slashing damage. It's basically like getting another attack in at this level, so that is very nice. It's a very big boost to our damage, and that's not even talking sneak attacks. We also get the Haggler here, getting 10% better sale and buying prices. Now, I will say the economy of this game is a little rough, at least in the early access, so this could be a very valuable skill as we get further along in the content, so just want to mention that here. But for the current moment, this is just really good extra damage. I personally prefer the Shadowcaster here because they get special spell casting, which uses trickery to cast these spells. They also will be intelligence-based casting. And with Shadowcasting, which as I mentioned, it used to be a level 13 feature in Solasta 1. It's now at level 3, much better, huge change. I think they did a great job with that because now it's fun to play. So when you deal damage with spells requiring an attack roll, you can use your sneak attack as if you were using a finesse or ranged weapon. This only applies to sneak attacks, and all the other rules will apply too. Now, this is something that you need to pay attention to because if you're thinking, oh, I can get some sneak attacks on a magic missile, this doesn't actually do an attack roll. It's a guaranteed hit, so that won't apply. Now, to tell what does a spell attack roll versus a spell save DC, if you mouse over something like Shadow Dagger there, you see its effects deals 1d10 psychic damage negated by a wisdom save. That is not something that we can actually do an attack roll with, so unfortunately Shadow Dagger, as cool as it sounds for a class like this, isn't going to work like Poison Spray will. Now my picks for cantrips, I like Poison Spray because it's going to have the highest damage die, although this has a range of only 30 feet, whereas something like Firebolt goes up to 120 feet, so 1d10 of damage. These two are solid choices. Ray of Frost is another consideration here. It only has a 60 feet range, but it's going to hinder the target, so you can do a bit of kiting with the target. If you want to go with the classic Fire and Ice, do Ray of Frost and Firebolt. Now for our spells, we'll take a level 1. Ray of Sickness is actually a pretty solid one. 60-foot range, 2d8 of poison damage, and the target will get poison, giving them disadvantage on their attack rolls. Also, another selection is Chromatic Orb. This does require you to have a gem of at least 50 gold points in cost. You don't consume it when you use it, but you just need to have it. And you can get this decently early on. By the point you're at level 3, you'll likely already have one. This you can do a 3d8. It doesn't change damage type, so it's going to be a 3d8 straight across: acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder. And a really cool thing about this is if you roll the same number on at least 2 of the d8s, the orb will leap to a different target within 30 feet. So you end up just casting this again. And this can jump a number of times equal to the level of spell slot that's consumed, although we're only going to go with like level 1 here. That's a good solid choice. I also like the Ray of Sickness there, just giving us 2 high damage options. Magic Missile is nice, but we can't sneak attack with it. However, it's still a decent option to have on our team because sometimes there's going to be targets that have like 2 hit points, 3 hit points, and multiple of them, and you can take them all out in a single action using this. Another spell that is very valuable is the shield spell. This is a reaction and it gives you a +5 to your armor class for a turn. This can be somewhat useful for survivability's sake. So if you want to maximize damage, we can take Chromatic Orb, Ray of Sickness, and Shield just for a bit of extra survivability. I also just want to highly mention the Identify spell. There's going to be a lot of items that you need to identify. Either a wizard, an Aether Warden, or the rogue Shadowcaster can use that. And comprehend language is nice too, but Identify is good if you don't have another caster. It's got that. But my personal preference, Chromatic Orb, Ray of Sickness, and Shield. And once we hit level 4, we get ourselves another level 1 spell slot, and we can take another spell here. So Hideous Laughter actually ends up being a solid choice here because this can also knock a target prone, which will set up our sneak attack for us. And this is negated by a wisdom save, so it's not obviously a sneak attack one, but very useful to have. If you want to go with clothing options, Mage Armor can set your base armor class to 13 plus your dexterity modifier, which is going to give you a pretty decent survivability if you don't want to use light armor. Long Strider is also a great buff. Movement speed increased by 10 feet. That's actually quite a bit. And it lasts for 1 hour there, which you can use until a short rest. And I'm also just going to quickly mention Thunderwave. It's just good for the extra movement and pushback. I like to have Magic Missile here. Again, you can't sneak attack with it, but sometimes you just want to pick off a target and have guaranteed damage, especially in the early game. But Ice Knife is another good choice here. It does have a dexterity save for just the cold damage, but you can sneak attack with the main. And for our feed, now you can go with the ability score improvement. But I talked about putting our intelligence up to 17 because there are a lot of great options. Like the powerful cantrip. If you want to use just cantrips, you get to increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma by 1, and when a creature succeeds its saving throw against a cantrip, or the attack misses, it can still take half the damage but suffers no additional effects. So this can just boost up our overall damage. If you find you're missing them often, this will help. Another cool one is Uncanny Accuracy. This allows you to increase your ability score by 1, taking our intelligence up to 18, and also get Eagle-Eyed, so your range attacks with both weapons and spells will ignore half and 3/4 cover. So we're gonna be a lot more accurate with this. This is kind of good because I find there's a considerable amount of cover here. And Eager for Battle is a good choice. This lets us also take our intelligence up. And when you roll for initiative, you add twice your proficiency bonus to the roll, so we can go in first and delete a target. And we also get increased speed by 10 feet. This is actually a really nice one because again, you're getting that ability score improvement, also 2 huge buffs. And that's the one I'm going to go with here. I just found this to be a very powerful one. Basically, when you get into combat, we want to be sneaking and trying to use our stealth to our advantage as much as possible. So if you're able to get into a combat encounter and get the advantage off on it by rolling the dexterity check before you get into the fight in the overworld, that means that we can start off combat with a much easier time getting a sneak attack. You're basically going to choose between your cantrips here. If you're going to use poison spray, if they're a bit closer for the higher damage, bearing in mind that the poison damage may be resisted by certain enemies. Firebolt's going to be your bread and butter though, because it has the longer range. Despite having a tiny bit less damage than the poison spray cantrip, it is a very useful choice though. I also, again, would recommend using your spells sparingly. You only get 2 of them, and you can't use Chromatic Orb until a bit later in the game, so Ray of Sickness will be your better option for the most part, and that's not even mentioning these weapons here. So I like to go, it's typically going to be a combination of putting the dagger into your main hand here and then putting the short sword into the offhand. We do want to keep that short bow there just because that vexing attack from it is very nice, but we want to get the Nick Mastery from the dagger here so that we can get that free extra attack with our offhand, and we can do some pretty considerable damage with that setup. Typically, you're going to want to prefer to do a melee attack just because the dagger nick is really good, but casting spells is also valid. I would also recommend having potions of healing. Since we don't have sustain like some of the other classes like the fighter, the paladin, the cleric, it is nice to have these, and I would actually recommend having your rogue have a good number of these. They're one of the better heals in the early access, and they're just a very dependable item. Also make sure that you have all the thieves tools as well, and that's just going to make your life a lot easier, but we're oftentimes just gonna be the trap duty. So with this, mostly we're gonna be going with our melee attacks until level 3. Then we can do our range attacks with spells. You can do bow attacks, obviously those are good too, but this is a very unique playstyle. Getting spells, sneak attacks is really fun. So let me know your thoughts on this build for the Thief in Solasta 2. Hit the subscribe button below if this is useful, and I hope you guys all have a great day.